Hello, interactive art designers. Today we're going to talk about web typography, which Dreamweaver has made very easy along with Google. So let's jump into a very basic setup and just let me give you an overview of what we are looking at, and then we'll go ahead and start working with our type. All right, so I have my type content box, this yellow box, and what I've done is 60%. I used a percentage for the width. Percentages for the margins, so it should basically always center in the middle of the page because there's a 20% margin and a 60% box. That should leave about a 20% margin over here. And I even used a little bit of padding. It was also in percentages. So that is what's going to keep this box centered. There's a little bit of padding on this box, and that is why the type is nice and not stuck against the edge. That would look bad. Okay. Also, I have inserted a heading 2. It's marked up. It says H2, and I did that, of course, under the insert menu. Here's my headings. I have one from 6 predefined in here. And I also inserted a paragraph, also in the insert menu, paragraph. Okay, now the formatting you see are just what basically comes out of the box. It's what's predefined for an H2 and a paragraph. But we're going to go ahead and modify that, which I would always do. Also, and this is very important, I'm going to show you how you mix up your own class and apply a class to a very, very specific part of this paragraph. Okay, so let's start with the H2 because that's pretty straightforward. And we'll go to our CSS designer. I'm going to click, I have my cursor in here in the H2. Don't have to, but when I hit the selector, it's going to hint for me. It assumes I want to do something to the H2, and it makes the selector for me. And it says type content, which is the name of this yellow box, H2. And I can use that, or I can truncate that first part and just call it H2. It would depend on if I want to affect all the H2s. This is external style sheet, so in my whole website, or if I just want to go ahead and do the H2s in my type content. Since I currently only have a single page, it doesn't make a bit of difference because there's only one heading 2 in this whole document. So it doesn't matter which one of these selectors I use. Let's just to make it, so we'll just use this. All right, so let's just go straight to type. And just to make sure this selector is working, we'll pick out a color. Let's go with like a brownish, maybe. We can stick with the fall colors. Something a little lighter than that so you guys can see it at home. I think everyone can see that, maybe even a little bit more brown. All right, there we go. You can definitely see that. It's almost too light. We will give it a size, in this case, in pixels. We'll talk about other type units like ems, which is very important, popular for type, a little bit later. But since it's a heading, we'll make it a wee bit bigger, 30 pixels. Okay. And here's what we're going to do is our font family is very important. And here's where we're going to go ahead and add another font. Now, you've probably noticed so far when you go to your font menu, you just get this tiny little short thing, and there's not that much in here. That is because the user has to have their font that you use on their computer. And this list are popular fonts across Mac and Windows that have come across all the different machines, all the different users that might be looking at your website. And the way that they work is like if I pick out impact. Under impact, you see a whole bunch of other things. So it says impact, and then it's Heidenschweiler? I'm not quite. Let's go with that. Franklin Gothic, Arial Black, and then sans serif. And what that means is if they don't have impact, then use the second one. If they don't have that, use the third one. And then finally it just says, just use the sans serif font if they don't have any of these previously listed fonts. Right, so, but now there's other ways that we can make this happen. We can actually give them the font data. We can have the font in our local group folder and it can go to them. And Dreamweaver will do that for us. It'll put all that information that we need into our local root folder, so we don't have to worry about that. What we do is we click on Manage Fonts if we want something different. And I'm going to go with my local web fonts because I've downloaded a bunch of fonts from Google. In fact, let me cancel this just for a minute. Nope, let's go ahead and do this first. I've downloaded fonts from Google Fonts, and I put them in my font folder that I have on my computer. So that will be different for everybody. I have a folder called Fonts, my Documents folder, and I've got TrueType fonts in there. So in my Documents folder, there's my Fonts folder, like one especially with the Google Fonts I've downloaded. And let's do like Metal Mania. I'm going to click Metal Mania Regular. That seems pretty October Halloween-y. And let's say open. It was a TTF font, a TrueType font. I have to click this little box here that I have license for it. It's from Google, so all those on Google Fonts are open source. And I click Add, and it'll come down here into this window. And I click Done. Now that did not change the type yet. I haven't actually, all I did was add it to my list. So now I can come to my list and I can see Metal Mania there. You can see I've previously added Big Shoulders Display, but this time I added Metal Mania, and I can pick it. And there it is. Now that I've added it, it's done a bunch of different things to my website and my file structure. Notice up here, I have an additional style sheet. Also, if I look at my type.css, I'm going to save that right now. It has a little on line 2, it's imported another style sheet. It's just called Stylesheet.css, which is what Dreamweaver made for me. You can see it up here also. You know, this is really just a reflection of what's happening over here. So I have this secondary style sheet, and all it has on it, if I look at it, it's very straightforward. It's one selector, font face selector, which has the font family and its URL, its source. So don't mess with that. That's super important. Also note in your files browser, there's this new folder, which is the web fonts folder. And in that there is my fonts. Actually, there's 2 of them, 3 of them, because there's 3 different things I've used in the recent past for this demo. So there's a whole set of folder, and in this Metal Mania, there's that style sheet that I use, and there's also this Metal Mania regular font. All right, it's a copy of the one I had in my font folder for my machine. All right, so it copied a version of it. Don't mess with any of that stuff. Keep it there. You know, it has to be in your local root folder. So we're good. Let's do a little bit more here. Let's click back over here so I can make sure I'm on my style sheet. So another thing, we'll have to pay a little attention to what our source is, because now we do have 2 style sheets over here. So if you're here, you're only going to see a few selectors, so you have to be on the correct style sheet. Okay. Let's do the paragraph next. Format that a specific way. So I clicked in the paragraph. Let's go back to our source code. Click in the paragraph anywhere, so that when we come over to our selector and we add a selector to our type.css, that's my style sheet that I started with, my external style sheet. I could do type content P, or again, I could truncate it. There's only 1 paragraph so far. So it depends how specific I want to be and how much I want to target this specific area. But like I said, in this case, there's only 1 paragraph and 1 page. It's not a big deal. But this P tag, it's an element selector, so there's no period, no hashtag. All right, let's pick out a font, color. I'm going to make this kind of bright so y'all can see what's happening here, because we're going to do a comparison. So we'll do like green. Oh, that's a little too light. Okay, so dark green, maybe darker. And I should be doing these, and I wasn't paying attention, in hex color. All right. Because I don't need any transparency, so let's just stick with the basics. And then font family, I'm going to pick Lucie de Grande, my sans serif font. And font size, let's do about a 14 pixel. It's pretty big, but that way you can see it pretty well. Actually, let's just do 16 so you can see it really well. Okay, 16 pixels. It's dark green. Again, if I wanted to switch from Lucida Grand to something else, I could simply go down to Manage Fonts, but we're going to do that in a second. And just to go through that process one more time, because the one important thing I want to show you with this demo is also that you can mix up a class and apply it to something very specific, like a single word or phrase. And I wanted to show you how different selectors can compete for attention, to see who wins, they battle it out, and to see what properties are applied to something. So the next spot we're going to actually use our properties window. And you might notice that we've used this before to apply links to something. So if I wanted to apply a link to this true type text right here, I could add it right here. And it would put some linking code around it. In this case, I want to apply a class to it. Now, right now, there's no classes to apply because I haven't made any yet. There's not a single class in my listed in my selectors. So let's go ahead and make a class and then apply it to this type. All right, so this here, so we can see our type, in this window, our properties window, and then our page. So over here at selectors, now this time the auto hint's not helping us at all. I don't want to add another paragraph rule. I want to make up a class. So I can hit a period for a class and I can call it something that makes sense to me, like standout type. All right, so it's period standout type is the name of my class. And then we got to figure out what we want this class to look like. So let's go specifically to our type thing and pick out a color that's going to really stand out. So we'll do like a reddish complement, pretty bright red. There we go. And we want a font family. Here we'll add a new one. We'll do Manage Fonts, go to Local Web Fonts, click my Browse again. In my Google Fonts, let's find something else I have. Let's do Big Shoulders. Big Shoulders black. That'll really stand out. Click Open. Say I have this. Add it. So we have Big Shoulders display in there. And done. And then I should have it available down here. Big Shoulders display black. Okay, nothing's happened yet over here because I haven't actually applied that class to anything. I still have to apply it. Right now, it's only being affected by the P tag because it's in a paragraph. It's an paragraph element, so all this type in here is taking on whatever rule I made for P. But I am now going to select true type and go to my class, and I can see that class in there now, standout type, and pick it. And look what happens. It's red. It's got a size. Oh, I didn't give it a size, did I? So here's what's curious or interesting. I have basically two selectors that are applying to this type. I have this standout type class, and notice what Dreamweaver did. It put it in a span. This is an element, an HTML element, and it put this whole area in a span just so it could separate it from my paragraph, right? Because it's also enclosed in a paragraph. If I look at my class down here, I can see that that's enclosed in a span, and that's enclosed in a paragraph, and that's in the type content box in my main section on my body. This little breadcrumbs thing down here is great to show us what's nested and what. Okay, so it put in a class, it applied the standout class to it when I selected it here. And in that standout type, I've given it a red color, and I've also given it a font family. But I did not give it a size. So what's curious about this is the size is currently coming from the P tag because that is the next parent. So it's 16 pixels taken from the P tag, but the color, because it's more specific, the class is more specific, is saying, you know what, don't make it green, make it red, because the paragraph is green, but this class is red, so it takes the red wins. And the font family, Big Shoulders Display, is beating out Lucida Grand because, again, the standout type is more specific, and generally that's how it works. But you'll have a lot of rules that'll compete, and one will win out. Like I could go to the font size here and give it a font size and override the original. You see it just disappeared. Let's just make it somewhere like 18. So now that there is a font size established, it will override the font size that was in my p tag. So keep in mind, the reason it's called cascading style sheets is for that very reason. The rule cascades from its parent down until it's overwritten by something more specific in general. And there's, sometimes it gets a lot more complicated than that, but that's generally how it happens. All right, so we've done that. We've made a class, we've applied it. The beauty of a class is that you can use it over and over. So let's just go over here to this other piece of text, web open font format 2, woof, and apply that class again. In fact, let's do it right here to web open font format, woof, without the 2, apply it again. That's the beauty of a class. So this has the class that each has an individual span around it. You can see, so the little simple things that are not within the span, like the comma and the word and, they are not within the span, so they don't have the class applied to them because I did not select them and apply the class. So those are still affected by the p tag, the paragraph element tag selector over here. All right, so we have added some unique fonts to our site. You can see now there's an additional style sheet for this other font I added under standout type, big shoulders. So if I go to that style sheet and check it out, you'll see that it says big shoulders. There's a URL to the font, and if I go to my files folder, you'll see in my web fonts folder, there are more folders now. Again, there were some other ones from some previous things I did to this site as I was prepping this demo. But keep those all in there. And now, under my CSS Designer, you will see that there's 2 style sheets up here. So there is a lot going on. Okay, oops, I want to do this. Okay. Also, the reason it wasn't showing me everything is because I want to go to my source code. It depends where you're clicked here to show you what's going on here. So that's what I wanted you guys to see, that there's now 2 style sheets in here. Each one has a font face tag on it. And you can see them up here as well, because I use 2 different fonts for these 2 different things. Okay, that is all. I think everyone's got the gist, and it's time to call it a wrap.